Learning through love. It's not an excuse to keep allowing your trauma to show up and ruin things for you. It's not an excuse to keep allowing your trauma to show up and you self sabotage. A major lesson I'm constantly learning is that trauma can be so deep rooted and it takes time and vast amounts of effort to correct yourself, to correct your mentality and your approach to life and love. Love after trauma can feel like war. Love feels amazing until the insecurities creep in, and unchecked, you can easily allow yourself to become something you aren't, consumed with fear and worry and lacking in faith. Love, in its essence, is sweet, joyful, playful, gentle, passionate, and opens you up to extreme vulnerability. This, as you very well know, is where the work comes in. There is nothing more precious and beautiful than genuine true love. And so why then can it be so difficult to be objective? Emotions. Uncontrolled and unaddressed emotions on top of unresolved trauma equal a nightmare. When you're a highly sensitive being in the process of bettering yourself, leaving the past behind and venturing into the new, it can be extremely difficult to manage everything, especially when life is presenting you with what seems like positive stepping stones that are met with highly triggering circumstances. On this side of the experience, I can acknowledge that the triggering circumstances have been necessary for growth. Let's be honest, it would be wonderful to never be triggered again. However, I know that triggers are an important part of one's progress. Without triggers, how can you overcome? And as someone who experiences triggers as heart-wrenching, I can recognise this experience I am overcoming has allowed me to uphold new boundaries, to recognise the kind of environment I do not want to be a part of, and that I don't have to negotiate on this. I can be stern in my decisions regarding my environment. However, unfortunately, at the beginning of this predicament, I felt extremely overwhelmed by my environment, which overpowered my ability to cope with the rest of life, which is excruciatingly frustrating. I had to drop the plates, and sometimes the mind can be so loud. In the moments one should pause, the gas is pumped and the crash out is real. Self sabotage strikes. If I do not give myself time to pause when matters are heavy, I will crumble, and I'm fine with knowing this. But in a world that more often than not requires you to always be on, this warranted reaction, when you're very sensitive, can be very annoying to manage and often only recognisable in hindsight. I believe there's a lesson in everything, no matter the circumstances, and whilst that doesn't make the circumstances okay, I also recognise this as an adopted understanding mechanism in order to make sense of this thing called life. If there is a lesson in everything, then what is it that I'm being called to learn? Often, it is easy to forget that we are all students of life and continuously learning, that love is a beautiful thing that requires you to crack out of your shell, to step forth and release any and all withheld truths. Love often asks us to get out of our own way and leap into our insecurities, face them head on, and slay them. Togetherness and union means riding the waves of uncertainty and not giving up, remembering wave after wave after wave that love is a tango of two and coming together isn't a challenge-free ride. It's a call for two people to battle alongside each other for something felt deeply within their souls. How, you ask, does self-love come into play here? Well, when the call to love another is present, it can become very easy to forget yourself, to need to prove yourself, to prove your love and rank others' behaviour towards you as not good enough, to demand more than they have available, to give. And in doing so, you forget that love is not about what can be done for you or who is willing to do the most. True love is about nurturing friendship and nurturing one another whilst giving one another space to grow. Love does not demand presence out of fear you are losing something. Signs to me of insecurity. If you pay attention to your behaviour and catch yourself, you can stop demanding from another what it is you are able to give to yourself, reminding yourself that another person's presence is a gift, not something to be taken for granted or exploited. The beauty of love is that in its purest form and in our kind mind, it's passionate and giving. It's deep and devoted and kind and caring, yet simultaneously, when unsettled, when insecurities arise and the self-reflection isn't present, it can be vicious and scolding and harmful, prompting the need for control instead of reminding us of the importance of freedom. The freedom to be who you are, whilst growing together with someone else. Love is not possession, and so offering yourself love whilst navigating loving another or others looks like space to merely be, to not fall into a trap of being so consumed with wants and needs that you forfeit your ability to nurture and cater to yourself. It's also been eye-opening to recognise how closed off I can be when I lack the capacity to take into account other people's feelings and how I may hurt them by shutting down. How this behaviour too hurts me, but it's not intentional. I can just become so overwhelmed and that completely wipes me out. It takes vast amounts of time to get back to my proper mind or come to the realisation that the things that I overthought about just do not bear enough weight to be present in thought today. And so I write this to say, please show yourself the utmost grace on this journey. We are all coming from different vantage points, and unlearning toxic ways is complex and trying. Navigating deep-rooted trauma and being asked to show up as normal is ridiculous, so do not shy away from carving out your own lane. It's worth acknowledging that, even though the awareness is present, to remind you that to move forward you have to amend your perspective and thought process, yet also keep yourself safe. Safety is paramount, and when you haven't had it, when it finally arrives, unsurprisingly, it can feel excruciatingly scary because a part of you is always contemplating the ifs and the buts, and not only is that exhausting, that is no way to live. It is unfair to yourself because effectively you are too, unrecognisably, preventing presence in safety, and you too hold yourself back from moving forward. I don't say this lightly because trauma builds fear within you, and that is a journey in itself to overcome. And yet the best thing to do is leap and keep leaping, and eventually you do not hold on to fear anymore. You know who you are and you recognise your worth, and you continue to push forward. You keep going. You deserve the kind of love you dreamt of as a child, and sometimes it is a matter of getting out of your own way to step into it. Choosing to be present instead of a bystander, waiting for something bad to happen takes courage. I know. And so you must know you're worth it. You're worthy of new adventure. The story, the new in a narrative that constantly reminds you and reinforces you're winning. Communicate where you can and be realistic. Sometimes you aren't capable of showing up as your best self in the moment of hardship, and that's okay. It's also a beautiful thing to be afforded the opportunity to look back and recognise, actually now knowing what I know, I would have handled it like this or even better. Using your voice to speak up about how you now recognise what you need to do and being okay with your truth, even if it isn't received externally the way you would like. To love means to continuously put trust in another and pour into what you are building, holding space for one another and keep allowing room to grow. To love self includes holding space for self whilst navigating partnership, being honest with yourself about what you're feeling, even when you may not clearly know the why, and not shy away from being open and honest about your needs. Assessing the emotional availability of another is also crucial because if your expectations supersede what is available, you can begin slowly chipping away at your self-worth. By knowing you desire more and trying to get more from someone who doesn't know how to give, which can be quite painful, and you have a choice to see if they're teachable or to choose yourself. How are you learning through love? And remember, to love thyself would be an awfully big adventure. You're listening to Self Love, Love Self 365 with me, Lahela Dalia Law.